Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 10. That's right, 10 of On the Flank. I am your host, John George, alongside Joe Kirkpatrick. Say hello, Joe. What do you think about number 10?
We're getting closer to, I guess I don't know what we're getting closer to, but we're getting closer all the time.
We're getting closer to 100. That's almost
There
100.
you go.
Wow. We're going to have a real big episode 100. Everyone always has a big episode 100. I don't even know what we're going to do, but we got to start planning for it now, Joe.
It's only almost 2 years away.
Yeah, it is. It is almost 2 years away, but it's going to be a big one. We're going to be live on the Overwatch League Season 3 Championship stage doing it.
There you go.
Yeah, today, Joe, I'm excited for this podcast because we finally got some colors, some logos, some team nicknames to discuss.
Oh yeah.
Later in this show. We're stay tuned. A nice little tease for you. We are going to grade the team's nicknames, their logos, and their color schemes. All three of those on a A to F scale. I'm excited to become a teacher. But yeah, we have we actually have events to talk about. I think it's been 4 episodes since we've had events to talk about. We've always skipped straight to the news.
Yeah, I mean, there's been contenders trials and that sort of thing, but other than that, yeah.
Yeah, there has been, but we got some big league stuff. As we know, they first announced the Overwatch League. They announced that these teams would be able to put on local sort of showcases or events during the off season, and we got our first 2 versions of that. The Gilded Gala and the California Cup both happened this past week. Gilded Gala, of course, was happening in London and the Houston Outlaws put that one on. And then California Cup is between the LA Valiant and the San Francisco Shock. Sorry, Gladiators. And yeah, both of them happened. They had show matches of some sort. I'm just as far as the Gilded Gala goes, I think the biggest thing is, hey, the London team finally went to London. And that's super cool, and I'm glad the London fans got to meet their championship team. And I think California Cup, I saw a lot more people talk about the California Cup. They had Brennan Sideshow casting it, a duo I love to see casting. They're hilarious together. And in the end, they actually played for something, the California Cup. They had a trophy and everything, and the LA Valiant won in the end. 3-1 was the final score. Does this matter any much? No, I guess they have bragging rights. They have a trophy now, but they're going to be playing for this cup once again November 10th. So if Valiant lose that one, and it is home field advantage in Oakland for San Francisco, so if the Valiant lose that one, I guess they only get the cup for 2 weeks. That kind of stinks for them. But yeah, Joe, what do you think about small little events like this? You like these local events? Could they have done anything better?
Yeah, no, that's great. Like we talked about, actually, I guess it probably wasn't specifically for this event, but things like, getting into community interaction, like when they went to that UCI event, what Valiant did, or stuff like this, bringing the competitive Overwatch North. That's great. That's what we want to see. Just in general, spreading for some of these local teams to build up their local image and get themselves out there ahead of season 2.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's a great chance, especially when, like the London thing, everyone's in LA right now and they don't get a chance to be with their local fans. The California Cup was a little bit more disappointing because, of course, it was in Santa Ana, which is right by LA. But it was cool to see the Gilded Gala in London, and I'm excited for the California Cup to head on over to Oakland. Really wish Houston would have had more attendance there in London. I know it's a big ask to fly people out there. I think they only had 3 players, maybe. Dante was there, though, which was cool. Spree, and then who was the other one?
Somebody else, maybe Raucus?
It was, I'm blanking on his name. He's Arhan,
Oh yeah.
Arhan, and Tyrong was also there. Who's not a player; he's the coach. So I wish Houston would have had a little bit more representation there, but it was cool to see Dante in some Houston gear. Uh, all right, that's it for those two. Let's move on. We got a nice little article about the World Cup top eight preview, which spilled some deets about times for the Overwatch World Cup. We will predict and preview these teams next week, and in a nice little special BlizzCon preview episode on next week's on the flank. But we'll just talk about what they talked about in this article, where we got some times when this is starting. Of course, it starts Friday, November 2nd. After BlizzCon usually kicks off with like an hour to hour and a half long sort of reveal thing for Blizzard, where they reveal new content for all of their games. If you don't watch that, I highly recommend you do. They put on a great show every year. I think 2 years ago they revealed Sombra, and it was super dope. That was one of my favorite BlizzCon reveals ever. So they should be revealing new Overwatch heroes. No map this year. We'll talk more about that later, but it should be exciting. I always enjoy it if you like Blizzard games. And after that is when the Overwatch World Cup starts, which should be around 12:15 Pacific, 3:15 Eastern Time. Quarterfinals is on day one, all four quarterfinal matches, and then day two you get two semifinals, a bronze medal match, and then the gold medal match. And the gold medal match is best of seven once again. I love those best of sevens. This will also be on Disney XD. I expected maybe we would get ESPN for that final, but no. Alas, it's going to be Disney XD the entire time, and ESPN3, which ESPN3 is exclusively just an internet platform. So if you're going to watch it on the internet, I'd suggest just watching it on Twitch. Anyways, biggest news, Joe is very excited about this, is they're playing on live. And Busan is in the rotation. We might get to see some professional Busan. Joe, want to go through this stat? Joe was curious as to when the last time they had been playing on the live patch in Tier 1 Overwatch. Joe, you wanna tell them?
Yeah, so because all the way through Overwatch League Season 1, we had these discussions about, oh, what patch should they play in the stage on, and oh, why isn't it the live patch? And it's such a shame because it's a different game, and why do we care about the way the professionals play a 6-month-old game, whatever. But yeah, but because they are playing live now, they're playing on 1.29. So assuming the PTR patch doesn't go live in the next week, which it probably won't, that will actually be the live patch, which is super cool. Like you said, Busan, we will see some of that, especially since because they're keeping the match format that they did from the group stage, which means that every match will start with a preset control map. So presumably about a sixth of the 8 games, 1 or 2 games, will start on Busan. So that's cool. But yeah, so like John said, I was curious because that seemed super rare to me to actually have professional, Overwatch League, Overwatch World Cup played on a live patch. So I went back to the last year of like we said, this Tier 1 Overwatch Overwatch League, Overwatch World Cup, all the way back to the ALP preseason in December of 2017. And long story short, there were 109 days in the last year that had either an OWL or an Overwatch World Cup match on them on those days, and only 13 of those days were played on a patch that was currently live. Most recently, that was Overwatch League Finals. 6 of the 8 days that finals happened were they were all played on 1.25, which was live for 6 of the 8 days of finals. Before that, it was all the way back to Overwatch League preseason, which is weird to think about.
Yeah.
But since, of course, Overwatch League Stage 3 didn't include Brigida, so it doesn't really count, even though the number of the patch was the same. But yeah, just to see that's about 12% of the last year has actually been on the live patch. So recently, actually, as recently as the South Korea group stage, or sorry, the U.S. group stage of the Overwatch World Cup was played on 1.27, which was live for that particular weekend. Um, but yeah, it's not so spread out, but it is fairly rare just numerically to have that. So it's kind of cool to think about. Obviously, we want as much of that as we can, or at least I certainly do. Um, It'll be interesting to see here in the next year or so how patch changes might be respaced out or rethought by Blizzard in order to perhaps make some of their esports more relevant. I know obviously we've talked this to death in the
Yeah.
last in several shows here now, but I just thought that was interesting. Yeah, only about 12% in the last year of Tier 1 Overwatch has actually been on the live patch.
Yeah, I think this is mainly because of it's because Blizzard, yeah, Blizzard just patches almost like every month. So it's going to be hard to stay. I mean, some of these have just like they've been on the live patch for like their first weekend or whatever, and then Blizzard has sent a patch out. So it's just I know a bunch of people want Blizzard to patch based off the esports, especially people like Monte Cristo. They've always been very they've really wanted Blizzard to not only patch time have their dates according to esports and the stage dates in Overwatch League, but to only be patching buffing and nerfing based off competitive play rather than lower on the ladder. So yeah, I don't know what they'll do. Joe, I highly recommend checking out Joe's post on the competitive Overwatch subreddit. It's a nice write up. Good write up, Joe. I liked it.
Thanks.
Yeah, but besides that, I'm excited. I'm excited to hopefully see Busan, and I mean, I believe South Korea. I think they're hyped about Busan. Speaking of South Korea, they changed their roster, which you're allowed to do. I've found out. Um, yeah, because all these teams picked 12 players to begin, and then they chose seven. I thought that I didn't understand the point of them choosing 12 and then seven, and now I understand it, Joe. They were allowed to pick any players from this 12 for the group stage, and then take those 12 and once again choose it for this stage. And South Korea, I believe, is the only team to make changes uh,
That
to
sounds right. Yeah.
to their roster. Um, the changes were Animo is in New York Excelsior. New York Excelsior, man. They put Fleta in for Sabiel B, which I think everyone really likes. Sabiel B is not the best. Is a great tracer. Tracer's not in the meta too much right now, so I think everyone agrees it's better to have Fleta. And then Fury. Everyone is super excited about Fury coming in. Who most people believe to be the best off tank in the world right now, just coming off a London Spitfire championship, and now he's going to be representing London or South Korea in the World Cup. So a lot less NYXL. What do you think about these roster changes, Joe?
It's good. It's gonna be great. To see that kind of exposure, I think primarily, we saw in the South Korea group stage some of this earlier roster. So to change it up is good. We know the talent is there, really across that whole depth of the roster. So yeah, so to be able to see more and different combinations, of these players that otherwise you wouldn't be able to see. It's gonna be refreshing as compared to the South Korea group stage, but also just cool going into season two.
Yeah,
Also,
I agree. I think these are upgrades all around, especially since it was super NYXL heavy at the group stages, and I don't think NYXL was the best South Korea team going into the group stages. So I think it's smart that they're including some different players. Besides that, last bit of news, I guess we got the talent team. We got some more ZP and Jake going on. I'm excited about that. We got some possibly more Brennan Sideshow casting. We've got. I don't think Uber or Mr. X have been there for. Were they there for any of the group stages?
they might.
Poss-
I think they did US. Yeah.
yeah, possibly the US one. But we got them back. We got Zoe back. We got Puckett back. Mika Burton, all these people we've known and loved from the Overwatch World Cup and some Overwatch League talent reinforced now that he's out as a player. He's back to being on the desk, I'm guessing. Which probably means we're getting a desk. We haven't gotten a desk yet here in the Overwatch World Cup.
Yeah, I forget who it was, but I did see somebody tweeting to the effect that yeah, that they will be on the desk for World Cup, which would be cool.
Yeah, so the desk brings the show together, in my opinion. I missed it a lot during the qualifiers over there. So yeah, that's all we got for events. We've got lots of news. So let's dive in. The first one is one that's close to Joe's heart. Hotba, Philadelphia Fusion man, traded to the new Guangzhou franchise. Since it's a Philadelphia Fusion player, I always immediately give it to Joe on his thoughts.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll miss Flexpa, the best tracer in the world, confirmed. But
Confirmed there.
but it's just trying to think about the way the niche that he would have filled on the team. Season one, he was brought in, trained a lot with Sato, and then when Sato came in at stage 4, they played a lot together. But now, presumably, as we saw the evolution through the end of the tournament, but also now here in the off season, as Sato and Poco are getting more comfortable together, we know Poco is really good. They're in that flex tank role, so be able to going through that rotation. Presumably, they decided Hoppa might not be so necessary anymore. So yeah, he's actually the first signing now that we know into the Guangzhou team, which is kind of cool. Kind of same in the sort of the same position as Janice, right? That's all we know about his team. But yeah, we'll miss him. He really carried us through some parts of the playoffs, especially. But yeah, hopefully that'll spark some more Guangzhou news now too.
Yeah. I really like when players from the league previously are on these new expansion teams. That's going to be a big storyline. I know the caster's going to point it out all the time, and I'm excited to like have a going in point on these expansion teams. Like, oh, Hoppa, like I saw him last year in the league, or oh, Janice, I saw him last year in the league. So it's nice to see some old names going to these expansion teams, and hopefully these expansion teams are good. That's what everyone hopes, and
Yeah.
Hoppa's a good start. But
And sharing that experience too, that'll help with some of the new players too. Presumably
exactly,
if they're coming up from contenders or whatever, to have that kind of experience on their team, people who've gone through a season now before, that'll be helpful getting them set up.
good in-game leaders. That's what they need. I know we haven't talked about the Paris news yet, but I have a conspiracy theory here that Philadelphia Fusion Poco, he's French. We know Paris is stealing all those European players, and especially the French players. I think they said, Poco, you're not leaving. We won't even have someone on the bench to back you up. You can take the spotlight. All right. So
Yeah,
I think.
I mean, it doesn't not make sense.
Thank you. Yeah, Poco. But I'm guessing Poco is going to be their main guy at Flex. I don't blame him. Go all in him. Go all in on Poco. Poco sucks to see Hotba go away because he's also great. But Guangzhou's going to love having him. On to the next signing. Seoul Dynasty have signed 3 players. They've signed Michelle, Jesse, and Marvel. Marvel, I'm guessing, unless it's Marv 1. If it is Marv 1, and it is a 1 right now, Overwatch League is going to make him change his name. And I'm guessing it's going to be Marvel. I'm assuming it's Marvel because people often use numbers to make numbers that look like letters in their names.
Eh.
But enough talking about their names. I guess we should talk about where they came from. Jesse is from Elemental Mystic. I know based off rumors, he was a big get this offseason. People really wanted him. As a support, he's a main support. He plays Lucio, Mercy, and Ana. Uh, on the on the other side of things, Michelle and Marvel both come from the same team, Lucky Futures Zenith, um, which is a Chinese Overwatch contenders team. Uh, they are both South Korean, though, I believe. Yes, playing in Overwatch contenders China. So none of these players, DPS players. Marvel's a tank backing up Fissure, main tank. Jesse's a support, and he's backing up Rio J Hung, who's the best Ana in the world, maybe. And how Ana's in the meta. And then you got Michelle on Flex alongside Zumba. What do you think about these three pickups? We finally got the Soul Dynasty pickups.
We finally did, yeah. It brings them up to, perhaps the full roster, sitting at 9 players here. Um, but yeah, the filling in some of the spots they need, I think it's fair to say. It's actually interesting. Actually, I guess this is unofficial, so whatever. I was going to say this. Allrosters.com is the site I use to. Oh, I don't. Somebody else makes it, but that I look at to look
Yeah.
at all the combined rosters. Anyway, just that they had a main tank icon for Michelle instead of Flex, but that's just whatever. That's doesn't mean anything. But yeah, to look at this roster now, yeah, they're coming in. Uh, they're trying to thicken up and make sure that they've got the depth of roster that they need now after losing what 6 at the end of season 1. So yeah, it was several main tank players now. Is it several flex, several support? This is Floodhead Munchkin looks like that's going to be their go-to DPS duo. There's only 2 official DPS players signed, but of course, even with some of the compositions that are in meta right now, that don't rely so heavily on DPS heroes, they're going to have lots of flexibility, I think, with this roster.
Yeah, I agree. Especially since the meta is not DPS heavy. Of course, the meta is probably going to get DPS heavy at some point. We just got a patch where shotguns were buffed. Pretty happy about that. We're talking about that later. So yeah, I like Soul finishing off their roster like this. I think they could pick up one more player, and I think it might be a DPS just so they can have a bench DPS player. They had 2 bench DPS players last year, so I would imagine they would like another one. I think, yeah, I think one more signing for Soul in the offseason. But so far, so good. Getting those bench players from contenders and snagging up those contenders players from the new expansion teams. They don't want them to succeed. Boston Uprising signed Blase. He is a Gladiators Legion player in the contenders. He's a DPS player. He loves the old Doomfist. And this is a great signing for the Boston Uprising, who obviously needed DPS after they dropped Mistakes, and everyone thinks it was a mistake, but they have picked up Blase. What do you think about this?
Yeah, so I guess initially I would definitely agree. He's got some pretty big shoes to fill.
Oh
Coming
yeah,
in from coming in from Mistakes. Just a really clutch player in season 1. Um, yeah, so I don't know much about him personally, but clearly Boston management has lots of faith in him. Uh, Hopefully he's going to be able to work well with Striker, and really maintain this team. It's a pretty small team actually currently right now. Only 7
7 players.
players after they cut 4, but yeah, it's like I said, clearly they're pretty confident in him going to be able to find a place in this new roster. So excited to see how that works.
Yeah, I am too. I'm excited to see Boston's definitely going to have more pickups here. And Boston, I mean, they intrigued us last year with their roster announcement. A bunch of players we had no clue who they were, and they turned out to do super well. So I expect Huck to do the same exact thing this offseason. But everyone knows who. I think everyone who watches NA contenders knows Blaze's some Overwatch League talent. He's good. But I don't know if he's mistakes good, but he can definitely get there, and he's going to be a good projectile hero Doomfist and Genji, and it looks like they're going, unless they pick up another DPS player, they're going to go all in on Striker being their Widow guy. So, which is good. Striker's a good player, but I mean, you would love to see Striker to be able to play Tracer most of the time. But Striker's obviously only gonna get better at Widow, and he was really starting to peak there at the end of the season. Another OG inaugural season team, the Shock, picking up Violet is what I'm gonna call him.
I assume so, yeah.
Yeah. Another person with a number in his name. He's gonna have to change that as well. He is from. Where is he from again?
O2 Ardiant.
O2. He is from O2. That is a big contenders team name coming out of these rumors. O2 is one of the teams that everyone wants to pick up from. They didn't do as well in Contender Season 2, but they're a lot like X6 Gaming in that they made the championship in Contender Season 1, and people still love to look at their talent because of that. And O2 is a support player for them, mainly Zenyatta and Ana, but he does flex onto Genji a little bit. San Francisco Shock's roster getting pretty big here. What are they at? Is that 13?
It's 11.
Okay.
But yeah, it's still a lot. They have to be done pretty soon, you would think.
Yeah, I would agree. At this point, they're just picking. I mean, they got Sleeping Moth on over at support. I don't. We know Moth is great. Mercy, and I don't know how he is at Ana, but if he's not that good, they got Violet now, so they've got a full squad here over at San Francisco Shock. Lots of depth now after they picked up both Rascal and they got Smurf in that trade, which was well needed because they had way too many DPS players. Yeah, what do you think about this Violet pickup?
Yeah, so I guess my one concern for Shock would be what I hope doesn't happen, like season one, was when they have this really large depth of roster and then aren't able to, for whatever reason, aren't able to use it to the extent that they can. Like we had players, like for example, IDDQD, who played like one map all season, or I don't even know, like when they, and I imagine a good part of this is meta changes too. But starting out, beginning of season one, playing lots of Baby Bay, playing lots of Nomi, and then almost none by the end of the season. It's just having the large roster is good for lots of different situations, but obviously the viewers want to see those players played. So hopefully that'll be a little bit more manageable this season.
Yeah. We're still waiting for a team to be able to handle a big roster and do well at it. We had teams like London Spitfire had a combined roster of 2 at the beginning of the season, and they ended up with like 8 or 9 players by the end of it. Just dropping people like flies. And it's just hard to manage that many people, and we haven't seen people in the league use their bench to great ability. They've been able to sub 1 or 2 players at most at a time into these games successfully while keeping team synergy up, and it just seems like Overwatch League teams have yet to figure out what the best use of the bench is if they want to use a majority of their bench, which could be a big problem going forward as far as rest goes and burnout goes. I think one of the biggest reason basketball players, professional sport players, don't get burnt out is they get to sit the bench most of the game, and they don't have to play the entire game. But that has not been a thing with Overwatch League players. So overall, we'll see how San Francisco Shock can handle this big of a roster. But they've got lots of weapons on that bench, and I think if they got Krusty in there now, who was a fantastic coach for Boston Uprising, so I think he can he can handle these players pretty well. And I like the Shock. I liked the Shock's roster last year. They're a young team. They're only going to get better as time goes on. Let's move on to the Shanghai Dragons. What we suspected has come true. We've got Ding, Youngjing, Luffy, Koma, all from Kungdu Panthera, coming on over to the Shanghai Dragons, which is big. I guarantee they will win a game now.
One would hope.
Yes, we also got DM from Lucky Future Zenith, and then we got Guardian. He's from Toronto Esports. What do you think about this roster now?
Yeah, this is great. Obviously, they're adding those six to Dia, Fearless, and Gregory, bringing them up to 9 now. But yeah, this is well, I mean, I would say this is exactly what they needed, but really all they needed was just bodies with a three-man team. But yeah, no, they couldn't have pulled from better teams, really.
Mm-hmm.
With the possible exception of Runaway, we all saw the match, but yeah, KDP. Not only to have the built-in synergy from their old roster, but also to come in and get going for Shanghai now. It's going to be good. Hopefully, being able to enable some of these season 1 players that they did keep, obviously that they see potential in, and help them grow as well.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic. They're going to be the team that gets the most Kungdu Panthera players this season with this pickup of 4 of their players, which Shanghai, Kungdu Panthera was probably like this. Runaway was the first priority for everyone probably. Then it was Kungdu Panthera when it comes to Korea contenders, and Shanghai, the team that went 0-40, getting 4 of those players is pretty crazy. And now Kungdu Panthera only has 3 players left on their active roster: Decay, Roar, and Choi Sehwan. And yeah, those players, we'll see where they go. It's probably not going to be Shanghai. There have been rumors that Decay and Roar are going to the Gladiators. So we'll see where they go. But for now, this is some great talent for Shanghai. Super impressed. DM is all you can't ignore DM and Guardian. These players are also great. My only concern for Shanghai, and my only concern for a player named Dia, is that they now have 4 DPS players. They're going the San Francisco Shock route, and I don't know if Dia is going to be seeing too much play. I know some of the better Shanghai Chinese players got a choice on whether or not they wanted to stay, and I believe Dia was the only one that said yes. And yeah, he might be regretting it once he hits mid-season and he possibly hasn't seen play, because they've got some very good DPS talent at this point. But I've always liked Dia. He's some good DPS talent as well. Another big one. Another big roster haul is the Paris expansion team roster. This is the first expansion team roster that's just full, I feel like, that we've gotten a full announcement here, that they came out, they made their Twitter, and then they were like, here's our entire roster. Really, they went the European route. We talked about this on the podcast. They did go the European route, like the rumors said. As far as Overwatch League previous talent, you got 3 players. You got Soon, who is on the Los Angeles Valiant. You got Shadowburn, who's on the Philadelphia Fusion. And you have Finnessy, who's on the Los Angeles Valiant as well. And you do have Damon, the head coach for the Los Angeles Valiant, also came on over to the Paris team. As far as the rest of the roster goes, you got Nico, Danye, LH Cloudy, Ben Best, Hype, and Cruz. These are all contenders talent, some from Eagle Gaming. You've got Copenhagen Flames talent. You got talent all around here. I believe Cruz is Toronto Esports. So you got talent from all around the league over here, coming to make a European super team. European fans are super happy about this one. They're also going with the 4 DPS roster. What do you think about? Do you think the Paris team can fit in with these inaugural season teams?
Yeah, this is going to be a great roster. Number one, obviously, we've talked about the team nationality and whether that's a good thing or not, but that's definitely something they've considered, building this EU roster. And I think, to a large part, that'll certainly help their fan base. But that's they're gonna have no shortage of talent in this roster either, for sure. I'm actually just now looking like with detail at their announcement graphic, which is kind of cool. They had some illustrator um, make a big, mural sort of thing
Yeah,
of all the players standing from the Eiffel Tower.
very pretty.
I haven't noticed there's a far in this guy holding a banner that says "Soon," which
Yep.
is I hadn't noticed, and a rib tire. But also notably in the back, there's actually a ninth player, a tenth player. I don't know how many there are that have been announced, but there's another player in the back with a hood on and an obscured face and a question mark on their pants. Um, so in theory, this might not even be the full roster, although
Ooh,
we do have it is nine players that they've announced. There might be more coming. Who knows? But yeah, to see. But obviously, we talked about in the World Cup. We said Shadowburn absolutely has to go somewhere. It was
yeah,
actually earlier this week since we did our last show that I think it was since we did our last show that that the Valiant announced that Zoom was leaving
yeah,
at the time to a team to be announced. But then of course we know that it is Paris. But yeah, lots of World Cup talent and lots of World Cup talent we'll be able to see coming in next week. As sort of a team Paris preview. But
yeah,
again, obviously we have no branding or information for this team yet, but we do have a roster, which is something that not everyone can say.
yeah. They're the first to announce their players. Everyone else is
Yeah.
going for that branding before their players. But yeah, I'm impressed with this roster. I mean, as much as everyone knows, I talked smack about. I don't want teams to. They're limited by picking up based off nationality. But as far as Paris goes, they were not limited clearly because this is some good talent. Um, and they were lucky enough that nobody last year paid attention to EU, and nobody in the off season's paying attention to EU or NA, honestly. So they could pick up the best talent in the EU. It didn't matter, and I'm grabbing Shadowburn, who was unfortunately dropped by the Fusion, and Fincy and Soon were both players that, I mean, obviously Valiant doesn't want to miss out on Soon, but if Soon really wants to go to Paris, which clearly he does, they're going to have to trade him for, I'm guessing they got money. So Soon and Fincy leaving their teams for this, it makes complete sense to me when you want to make a European super team. And I really like this roster. There's going to be a huge rivalry between Paris and London, and it's also basically going to be sort of the argument between should you go with your team nationality or should you go um, with the Koreans. And it's going to be interesting. I think I can't remember who was tweeting about it, but somebody was tweeting about how he's seeing all these London fans jump ship and go to Paris, and that how they're going to, once Paris performs significantly worse than London, they're going to be jumping back on to the London bandwagon soon enough. So that's some big trash talk about the nationalities already. So we'll see what happens, but I honestly don't think Paris is going to do that bad this year. I think this looks like a pretty good roster. So we're moving on finally to team branding. God, I've been waiting for this all episode. It's been 40 minutes and we haven't been able to talk about this, Joe.
It's
So
true.
me
It's
and
true.
Joe, we're gonna go through. We're gonna grade in order. We'll go one by one, back and forth on these. We're gonna grade their nickname first, then their logo, and then their color scheme on an A to F scale, like we're college professors. And let's start with. I mean, let's do both at the same time. How's that sound? Let's do both.
Okay.
Atlanta Reign were revealed first. on Tuesday, and then the Toronto Defiant yesterday, Wednesday, were revealed. We got some similar color schemes going, but let's start with the nickname. Atlanta Rain. What do you think about this nickname, Joe?
Um, yeah, so Atlanta, I think this is probably the one that I like better of the two, for sure.
Yeah.
I wish, obviously people were speculating once they knew that this Atlanta roster and all the other rosters that were announced, they're saying, oh, they should, um, like coming up with ideas. People were trying to come up with like regional themed names, and that's obviously not really what they went for. But yeah, it's cool. It's a very Overwatch League name. Teams like LA Valiant and New York Excelsior and stuff. Um, but yeah, it's cool. It's definitely thematic. They've got something to work with, especially with the rest of their logo and their branding too. So um, yeah, so A through F. I don't know. Maybe give the Atlanta Rain as a name. Somewhere in the B plus range, perhaps.
Okay, B plus. Okay. Um, I'm gonna go a little less than you. I'm gonna go like C plus. I'm Atlanta Rain. My only issue with it is it's saying it. I guess I like the idea of it. I like the concept of it. Atlanta Rain is just feels weird out of the mouth. It almost makes me feel like I'm talking about the weather. Um, so that's my. It's a. I've got nothing else to complain about besides saying it is weird, but I think the idea of it is really cool. Um, yeah, we can move on to the Toronto Defiant. I guess I'll lead off with my grade for the Toronto Defiant, and then we can go back. I'm very opinionated on their nickname. I'm immediately going to come out and say this is an F from me. Their nickname. I hate these adjective nicknames. Defiant, Valiant. I don't like that. Your nickname, your mascot shouldn't be an adjective. Just make it like a noun. Just give it a noun. Um, I like the Valiant's branding a lot better, even though they have an adjective nickname, because they represented it in some sort of way. They like it gave us like, oh, we're the Valiant, but our mascot is kind of like Mercy because of her helmet is like, yeah, and all this stuff. They gave a little branding explanation, but Defiant have come out and they've given no representation of what Defiant means at all. So it's Defiant is an F from me. I'm sick of these adjective or like obscure nicknames like Uprising and Valiant and all these like things that have that they're gonna have a hard time representing in the physical form. It's just like annoying to give me some weird, obscure, edgy nickname that's like just go simple, go with something simple like Shanghai Dragons or Dallas Fuel or Houston Outlaws. I like those a lot better. What do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree. But I think the Toronto Venom would have been much
Oh
cooler.
yeah,
If you saw that they had, it makes me wonder where they got it from. But yeah, they had somebody on Reddit leak, just a black and white Toronto Venom team, which would have been cool.
yeah.
I think the logo is much cooler than the name. Yeah, Toronto Defiant, and it's actually if you look at their branding too, like their hashtag is very similar to Boston Uprising too.
Rise
I forget,
together.
it's like Rise Together, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not so much of a fan of this one either. I don't know if I'd give it an F, but it's definitely below sea level.
Yeah. I'm very opinionated. I think a lot of these teams were trying to be like real out there, edgy, like obscure with their names, like, and they thought it would be cool. And honestly, I just enjoy like a nice little mascot, like a nice Shanghai Dragons or anything like that. Just give me a nice physical representation of your team. I enjoy that a lot better than you trying to be like edgy or cool and be like rise together. We're the Defiant. Like, okay, like that's fine. But yeah, as far as logos go, I guess we can start since you already talked about the Defiance logo a little bit. Let's start with the Defiance logo. This has grown on me significantly. When this first came out, I thought it was fine. But as time has gone on, and I've seen some merch, and I saw it on a hat, seeing it on a hat, I would give this I would give this one. Let's see. I would give it a B plus. I like this logo a lot. It reminds me of like it's just simple. It reminds me of like a Boston Red Sox, New York Yankees, like what you would see on just like a baseball team cap. It's like just a simple letter logo, and I like simple letter logos, and it's cool. It's TD. I like the letters. But yeah, I think it's nice, simple. It's very different from the Atlanta Rain logo, which I guess we'll get into. They're pretty much the opposite as far as simplicity goes. What do you think about this one, Joe?
Yes, like you said, I also like the logo better than I like the name. It's actually, I was looking over because yeah, it's one of those logos that like it looks like just a picture, but then like you can find the letters in it. And so I was actually thinking about the other Overwatch League teams, and actually the other logo that does that is Boston Uprising
Yeah,
because
it
you got
does.
the B in the middle and the U coming around. But yeah, it's you know whether it's a snake or whether it's just a little angular line. Uh, yeah, it's sort of makes up for it a little bit. I'll give them that at least.
Yeah. I mean, there needs to be more just classic lettering logos like this. I think that's what the MLB is the most famous for, is just having those like cool letter designs like the Yankees and Red Sox just on their hats. And I think letters can be cool, guys. And I think they nailed it. But I really like the Atlanta Rain logo. I know people are hit or miss on this one. I really like this one. It's one of my favorite logos in the league. I like the crest sort of style they went with. Um, it's very similar to like the player like in game in Overwatch, that little border around your character in the
Yeah.
in the
The,
player
the
select screen.
profile border or something.
Yes, exactly. So I think that they went with that thematically, I'm guessing. And then you've got a bird. I love birds. A beautiful phoenix rising from the ashes, and I think it's very well designed. It's not too the phoenix isn't too complicated. It's nice and simple. And then you've got a crown right above his head that he is rising towards. I really like this logo. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, this is great. You know, we've talked about a little, um, but I mentioned, you know, that they were potentially going on like some regional thing, and so one of the suggestions I saw just from the general public was, you know, something to go along with like Sherman from the American Civil War, which is sort of odd if you think about it. You know, famous for like destruction of the southern countryside in like a big giant swath, whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, so the this Reddit commenter was like, "Oh, fire! See, it's like Sherman's." So, whatever. But it is a cool logo. Yeah, I think again it fits in well with the rest of the teams. You know, hopefully, obviously, we'll be seeing more in the future, but you know, recognizable, distinct, and yeah, well designed.
Yeah. I didn't give it a grade. I'm giving it an A. What are you giving it?
Yeah, I think they could have done much better. Yeah, it's yeah, I'll take an A.
All right, A Atlanta. A for Atlanta. Um, yeah, honestly, and it's just I don't know. Like I was saying, they have Atlanta Rain is kind of also an obscure reference, but they gave it a representation with this beautiful bird. So something that Toronto failed to do with Defiant. Color scheme. They have a very similar color scheme, but I'm going to the press releases to give us both an official look at what colors they are going to be using. Atlanta went a little bit more in depth with what kind of colors they're using, but Toronto just did a powerful combination of red, black, white, and gray. While Atlanta, I mean, let me find exactly where they said this. Uh,
It's like red, charcoal gray, and dark gray or something.
yeah, something similar to that. No black in there is I think the biggest thing to point out. Why can I not find this? Where is this in the press release? I saw it yesterday. What is this? Official colors are light gray, red, and charcoal gray. There we go.
Okay.
Let's start some very similar color schemes. Toronto gets the black. Atlanta doesn't get black. I guess we're gonna grade it based off of not only what colors they chose, but how their skins look on these characters because we also got the skins. Let's start off with the Atlanta Reign. You can go ahead and start.
Yeah, so Atlanta Rain, obviously this was the one we saw first, but I think in general this is also the one I like just a little bit better. Um, they have a Lucio here and a Zarya on their uh, announcements page thing. But yeah, I like the red and gray is unique. That distinguishes them from like Shanghai with the red and black, or the red and yellow of the Florida Mayhem. Um, yeah, it has this sort of especially with lots of the silver accents, makes the armor actually look like armor and all that, which is helpful.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think this is the one I like better of the two for sure.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of people like Toronto Defiance better. I don't know. It's super close between the two, but I think they both. Honestly, if I had to grade them both at once, I'd both give them an A. I mean, this is what the league needed. They needed red, and they needed red and black. They needed red without yellow involved, and they both have complied to that. Atlanta, I like how they didn't. I don't know. I like how one team does have black and the other doesn't. I like Atlanta how they're red and silver. I really like the light silver on these for Atlanta. And then I really I'm confused as to why neither of these skins. I mean, Atlanta doesn't have black as a color, so there is no black. But Toronto is not using black in these skins at all. They're using their dark gray, um, which is interesting because I think black. Everyone wanted to see red and black, but despite them not using black, I think I like Toronto's skins better personally. I think they're cool, but in the end, they would both get A's. They both have the color scheme is more context heavy for sure, and the context is that Overwatch League needs more red and black teams without yellow involved. So please, thank you for complying. No more yellow teams. Please, no yellow teams. No yellow anywhere. Maybe blue and yellow. Maybe a little like, ooh, I could use some like powder blue and yellow. Ooh, that'd be nice. But no more yellow, if anything. Did you grade the color schemes?
I don't remember. I don't think I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's Atlanta Rain. Yeah, I think I would also agree. We'll give them an A there. Toronto, solid B for sure. And again, maybe if they were released in a different order, it might go the other way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's they're going to work out well for them, I think.
I agree. I realized like that I favored the Atlanta Rain colors more, but then I realized it was pretty much just because they came out first, and I was upset that Toronto copied them, even though they probably didn't. Obviously, they were probably developing these at the same time. We got an October developer update that came out of nowhere for me, and I was so happy about it. Jeff came onto that screen and he said that we were going to be able to watch the Overwatch World Cup in game, in client. We were going to be able to watch it, spectate whoever we wanted. I did not expect this to happen for season 2 of Overwatch League. I will be honest with you. I did not expect this to happen right now. I expected it to be a very far down the line thing, and I think they've been working super hard on this. So we get an Overwatch World Cup viewer where it's basically going to be an in-game spectator where we have tons of tools. We can watch it live and we can watch the replay of these games. I think you mentioned the replays will only be available for the semifinal and finals games.
Yeah, for whatever reason.
Who knows why? But yeah, I mean, this is just I'm ecstatic about it because this is what everyone's asking for. I mean, people can finally stop complaining about the observers in Overwatch League and just go observe themselves and then miss a bunch of things. I think everyone's going to find out how hard it is to actually observe Overwatch. But if you want to watch any player on the team you want to watch, you can go in client now and watch them the entire time.
Yeah. For this particular one, they said obviously it's just a PC thing because they're testing it, beta.
Yeah,
I
I
got the
thought.
impression too that it would be like a separate download, like the PTR is, that it would be a different client that you'd have to install, and that it wouldn't be like in the actual live game proper.
Yeah.
But I think that's their goal in the future, definitely.
Oh yeah, it's definitely going to be a separate PTR build of Overwatch. But the fact that they're going to eventually port this to PlayStation and Xbox too is crazy. Didn't expect that to be a thing. I thought if it happened, it would be very PC exclusive because that'd be a crazy thing to put in a console game as well. That's got to be a lot of data to stuff in there. Um, and what was I about to say? Oh yeah, I definitely expect it to eventually be merged into the live game, but for now it is a separate thing on the like kind of like the PTR. I don't know if it will be on the PTR or if it's going to be a separate sort of download. But yeah, I don't. There hasn't been specifics confirmed about this whatsoever. Um, we know that the observers in Overwatch League get like full stats. We know that we're going to get the mini map, which is fantastic. Everyone wants the mini map. There's no information on whether or not we'll get like the audio from the cast put in there. That's something I would really enjoy is if I didn't have to open up like a Twitch tab or something like that to get the casters because I doubt that's going to be in sync. Um,
Yeah.
if they just had like the audio from the cast built in there somehow, that'd be fantastic because I still want to be able to hear the casters. Um, I love the casters, and I personally would love to be a caster one day. So I definitely want to hear those. I I love this. If we get stats, if we get all these things that the observers in Overwatch League get, this is going to be fantastic. You gonna use this for the World Cup, Joe?
Oh yeah, definitely. Next week it'll be a busy weekend for sure.
Yeah. I'm unfortunately going to be in Pittsburgh on Friday, so I can't use it on Friday, but I will be using it on Saturday. Um, so what else did Mr. Kaplan say? He said he wanted to make the viewers' expectations at BlizzCon different because every year they announce a hero and a map. No new map at BlizzCon this year because it gets lost. It gets lost apparently in all the buzz that's happening, which makes sense because it usually takes like 2 months after BlizzCon to release the map, and it only takes like about a month for the hero to come out.
And
Um,
presumably because they've been working on all these other things too.
exactly. But I mean, they have a set schedule for when maps come out, and it feels like they decide to announce the map at BlizzCon when they don't really have to because it's coming down the road usually. Um, a new PTR patch has come out. Joe, you're a PTR patch man. Do you want to talk about what do you want to talk about?
Sure. Yeah. So this is 1.30. Obviously, like we said, they're playing on 1.29 at BlizzCon. But yeah, so just like Jeff mentioned in the October developer update, we've got some buffs coming through. Buff for Mercy, specifically for Valkyrie. Actually, I had the patch notes pulled up here. The ultimate cost of Valkyrie is actually reduced by 15%. And while in Valkyrie, the healing per second goes back up to 60 instead of 50. So it's a little bit stronger ultimate and it'll come up a little bit faster. Although with the recent nerf to her HPS, while she's not using her ult, that'll essentially just, at least by their estimation, just restore it to the rate that she got it before that nerf, which makes sense. It'll make her a little bit more useful and keep her in line sort of with the rest of the supports in that a lot of them are chosen specifically for their ultimate, right? You pick Zen specifically for trance, and you pick Ana in general. Ana not so much, but
Yeah.
you pick Zen for trance for sure, and things like that. So to have Valkyrie a bigger part of Mercy's kit is important.
Definitely.
Um, Reaper, the spread randomization on his shotguns has been reduced by 50%, and his lifesteal has actually been increased from 20 to 30%. make him a little bit more survivable, make him a little bit more consistent with his shotguns. There's actually already been a Reddit post in the last like day or so complaining that this spread change actually reduces his DPS a little bit because it essentially reduces the rate at which random crits happen.
Oh,
Um, so I guess you might have to be more precise with your left clicks now in order to get the same types of headshots. I don't know. I haven't looked into that too much, but
huh.
it's at least a change to Reaper's spread, in addition to a buff to his lifesteal. Um, Roadhog change. I'll just read this because there's a lot of things. The chain hook decreased the delay before pulling a hooked target from 1/2 of a second to 0.3 seconds. Now greatly reduces the target's momentum upon being hooked, and the cooldown now begins immediately instead of after the target has been pulled. Hopefully, what that last part doesn't mean is that if your hook breaks because of some stupid geometry thing, that your hook will go on cooldown, which I guess it kind of does already. But hopefully that doesn't become a bigger problem. Hopefully they've done some tuning on the hook because it's esports ready.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so some hook changes. It'll be quicker pulled to you, so that's cool. Scrap gun spread pattern adjusted for both primary and secondary fire. Presumably, oh, here we go. Yeah, it says we move some of the projectiles closer to the center of the spread pattern, giving more consistent damage output. Um, so that's the thing. Spread randomization reduced by 50%. Yeah, so it's similar to the Reaper change to make it a little bit more consistent that there will be damage in your crosshair.
Yeah.
And then whole hog, the ultimate, the horizontal recoil has decreased slightly. I don't even know what that means. I guess the movement penalty that Roadhog gets or something.
Yeah.
Because
If
there's lots of vertical recoil,
yeah,
but
there is. Yeah.
uh, anyway, and then knockback maximum velocity increased by 25%. From 8 to 10 meters per second, and they said that's essentially accommodating for a bug fix. That there used to be a bug where the knockback was way too fast, and people would just go flying off the map. So they fixed that, but then it felt too limited, so they increased the knockback a little bit.
Okay.
And then Symmetra, her left click now will charge 20% faster than it used to, which is pretty significant. Obviously, Symmetra, almost nobody uses her left click just because it's so hard to ramp up on the live patch all the way up to level 2 or level 3 damage. So to have that happen 20% faster, that'll be some help. We'll have to see how much help exactly it is, but ramping it up on a shield, that sort of thing will be a lot quicker now.
Yeah.
And then in general, there's bug fixes, hero fixes, all that. The one significant or the one significant sort of other type change is they said they have made the jump height of all heroes consistent across the hero roster. So do with that information what you will. I'm not entirely sure. I suppose like maybe Genji could have hopped higher or something.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's someone on Reddit put out a video.
oh yeah,
Tracer was jumping higher than a lot of heroes. Um, and I think it was Tracer was the main culprit of this, but they made it. They buffed people, or I don't know if they buffed him exactly. I believe they buffed him so that people could jump as high as Tracer can,
hmm,
basically. Probably some other characters had the same thing going on as Tracer, but yeah, I think the example they were using was Roadhog versus Tracer, and both of them had the same jump height in the PTR patch, but in the live patch, Tracer was able to get to certain places Roadhog was not. So this is a nice little quality of life change. But yeah, besides, I mean, I
yeah.
guess I'll talk about my opinions on these hero buffs. I like them all. I always like getting rid of randomization things in games because it makes it require more skill. So Reaper's DPS might be off for some gold players, but I'm sure Grandmaster players who have better aim are going to be able to utilize this Reaper a lot better. Same with Roadhog and his randomization spread going away. I mean, as a Roadhog player, I'm super happy about his buffs. I watched Hard Blue play the PTR And that hook pulls in super fast, and I like that. I really like how fast that hook pulls in. As far as like horizontal recoil goes, I'm guessing that's him possibly moving backwards. I'm not sure, honestly, because it is vertical, isn't it? It is like kind of vertical recoil.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So I don't know what that means exactly.
but yeah, Symmetra buffs. This is the second time they've buffed her left click, and they're needed both times because yeah, her left click is not that good. I guess the Mercy buffs. I mean, everyone does not like it when Mercy gets buffed, but I think these ones are fine. I don't think this is going to make her OP. So overall, a good PTR patch. I like it. I
Yeah.
think
Uh,
I think the most
w-
overpowered thing here is Reaper's lifesteal going up, and I think people are going to be upset about that, especially during his ult. He might be unkillable, which is kind of
it's
annoying.
true. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that. There were a couple other small changes that did make the patch notes. For example, Blizzard Worlds now in the second point, there's like that StarCraft building. Um, the back in the back now, there's sort of a little tribute to Mike Morhaime, one of the founders of Blizzard, who I guess retired recently.
Yep.
There's uh, an image of him and sort of a timeline of Blizzard as a company, which is kind of cool. Although it does leave out Overwatch, because of course Overwatch does not exist in the Overwatch universe.
Yep.
Um, but so that's cool. There's also been apparently a visual update to the payload on Route 66. That the little cap of it has like opens now. Stylosa was freaking out about that. He's like, "Oh, Hero 29 confirmed." So we'll see what happens with that. Who knows? But yeah, those are the main mechanical changes to the PTR patch.
Of course, Hero 29 was confirmed from that. Um, yeah, that go check out that Blizzard World update. It's really cool. If you're a Blizzard fan whatsoever, it's a nice little thing for Mike, who unfortunately has to retire because he's a great guy. But yeah, I'm glad they put that into the game. It's a nice little area in Blizzard World. But yeah, that's all we got for this week. We got no topics this week because we finally got tons of news. Happy about that. But yeah, as far as I guess I'll get into the social media. If you want to follow us on our personal Twitter accounts, mine is JWGeorgeIV. Joe's is Kirkpatrick_Inc. That's INC. And then the show's Twitter is On The Flank Show. You can also email us on theflankshow@gmail.com. You can use either our email or Twitter to send us topics or questions you want us to talk about here on the show. Or if we made any mistakes during the show, you can correct us, of course. As if, of course, you are listening to this in some way. If you want to listen to it in a different way, you can find us on ontheflank.podbean.com. You can find us on my personal YouTube, which is John George. I have it linked on my Twitter. It is very hard to just look up John George and find it. iTunes or Apple Podcasts, we are on that. If you're an iPhone user, if you're an Android user, and a Spotify user, it is on Spotify. I have realized that a lot of Android people use Google Play Music for their podcasts, so I have decided to make it my duty to get us on Google Play Music as well. Yeah, that's it for this week's episode number 10. I guess I should let you guys know that we will be back next Wednesday, Halloween, to preview BlizzCon, and we may have a nice little special post-BlizzCon show for you guys. Check out our Twitter for any announcements on that. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll check you guys out next week.